Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive, as we are merging our AM radio station with our Baltimore Positive brand. You'll be checking out a brand new website at both places, hopefully beginning 1 week from now. It's all brought to you by our friends at Taharka, as well as Chicken Palooza and our friends at Royal Farm. I'm even sporting my Full Circle Tire and Auto shirt as well here on our YouTube. And as much as Earl Thomas is the story and the Ravens might win the Super Bowl and they're COVID testing out there with no preseason action, not even against the Washington football team at this point. The Baltimore baseball team, however, is playing. Took on the Red Sox over the weekend. It's been a tough week for the Orioles, and I think if we went back to the beginning of the season, we'd say, maybe they'll win 18 or 20 or 22 out of these 60 games or whatever. They get out to this incredible start. They're 11-7. I'm writing on my elotes with my crema sauce. But last week was tough, right? And the Mountcastle story will be the shining light moving forward. But for those of us hoping for pennant race, that might not be happening here in the next couple of weeks.
Well, I'll continue to remind everyone it's over half the teams in the league make it, so it's kind of like
all
the
pennant
NBA
race baseball. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean it's just like the Stanley Cup playoffs or the NBA playoffs. I mean it's definitely different in that way. But yeah, clearly a bit of a market correction over the last week, to say the least. Which, look, the beginning of the season's been fun. It's been fun watching this team play. I think you have, to borrow a phrase that Buck Showalter used to use, some pile divers that Brandon Hyde has with some of these misfits and cast-offs.
Rio Ruiz looks like a good ball player, Luke.
Well, he broke out on Sunday after really slumping big time, driving in 4 runs. But you've seen some good things, and certainly Santander leading the way, and Alberto has been scuffling lately, but still carrying over for the most part what he did last year.
Still got a better name than you, Luke Jones. You had Hanser Alberto your whole life. You'd be something, let me tell you.
I know, right? And Ronaldo.
It's a great name team. It's the best name team of all time, I think.
Oh, 20 years from now, we're going to be talking about these early rebuild teams and reminiscing about some of these names that you hadn't thought about in 15 years.
I saw Peraza the other day, and I thought Oswaldo Peraza. I wanted to see if they were related or not. From the same island, maybe, but no really. I just start seeing these names, Chico Simone, and I think Rio Ruiz and Hanser Alberto. These are great names.
Pat Valaika. How about that one?
Pat Valaika. Yeah,
Valaika
took me a little while to get that right.
Hitting for some big-time power over the last few days, but they've clearly come back down to earth.
Got Dan Gladden hair. That's an old school reference. I'll let you look that one up.
I like that one. But they were clearly going to come back to earth at some point, and they have. And that's not to say that they're going to completely go in the tank. Nice job regrouping and taking the last couple of the Boston series. But for me, things that I'm looking at right now, more so than 6 losses in a row or winning 2 to get back on track at the end of the weekend, is Ryan Mountcastle making his debut, which we'll talk about that in a moment. Cedric Mullins swinging the bat well in place of Austin Hayes, who got off to a slow start himself. So you're looking at those little things. You're looking at those glimpses of younger guys who I don't know if they're going to be part of the next pennant-winning team here in Baltimore, but I think they have a better chance than some of the other guys most of the other guys on this roster at this point. So,
well, the Dwight Smith types, and it's just sort of like
you cycle through.
It's a carousel. Yeah, it really is.
I mean, it is. We've talked about it. I mean, they're still at a point. And that's why seeing Mountcastle arrive on Friday was exciting. Not that he's a can't-miss prospect by any stretch, but the first 2 years of this Elias era have been much more about placeholders at the major league level than prospects. You've had a few. Austin Hayes last year, although he struggled and now he's hurt. Hunter Harvey at the end of last year, but he hasn't pitched yet because of some arm issues. So you've had to look at some of these reclamation projects, and the one guy that's stood above the rest is Anthony Santander, who you and I know I wrote about this so many different times, bagging on Dan Duquette about the Rule 5 draft. And look, that was still so much more of a net loss for contending clubs. But a lasting gift from the Dan Duquette era is looking like Santander. He's got an 18-game hitting streak now. He hits for power. He's done a nice job. Still has the occasional hiccup in the outfield, but overall his defense, I think, has gotten better from where he was a couple years ago. So he's someone who turns 26, I believe, later this year at the end of the season, October, maybe off the top of my head. He's at an age where he's got a chance to stick around and be something for some contending teams at some point in time. So you're looking for those things. Yeah, I get it. It's tough to see guys struggle on the mound, or Wade LeBlanc leave early with an injury, or bullpen guys not getting the job done, or things of that nature. But we knew this team wasn't any good and was going to lose this year. So it was great that they started off well. They're clearly better than anyone was willing to give them credit for at the start of the year. So that's a real testimony to them and a testament to Brandon Hyde. But we know that they're still very early in this rebuilding project. And Mike Elias acknowledged it over the weekend, talking a little bit about the trade deadline coming up here in the next week or so, where this isn't a team that's going to be a buyer. This team is far more likely to be a seller. And that's by no means saying or suggesting that you have a fire sale and you just sell guys for pennies on the dollar. But if someone wants to overwhelm you or give you a really good return for a Michael Gibbons or Alex Cobb, or even one of if someone wants to give you something really good for Hanser Alberto, considering he's 27 years old already, I'm probably doing that. So you're still very much looking at this in terms of a long view perspective. And I know that's tough for fans who really like seeing them win for the first few weeks. And then obviously they scuffled over the last week, but you have to keep your eyes on the prize as far as where this team is. And that's why, for me, I'm much more intrigued to see how Ryan Mountcastle does, to see when we're going to see Keegan Aiken come back up and maybe potentially make some starts. Dean Kramer. There are some guys that are close and some guys that I think we're going to see before this season ends, even though it's crazy to think we're a little over a month ago. It's just wild. It's just having started a month ago. But it really is a case of, for me, still finding those individuals to really focus on. And that's why, as much as a 6-game losing streak was rough, it was nice seeing Cedric Mullins swing the bat as well as he has since he was called up in August 2 years ago. And knowing what kind of disaster he's been since then.
Yeah, he's been in the pipeline for quite some time, right? Like every chance Cisco, every time I see Cisco's name, I'm like, oh, I remember he was a prospect, right? Like,
I'm glad you mentioned Chance Cisco, because he's someone who, look, I mean, Adley Rutschman's going to be the guy here, right? Or something has gone horribly wrong as far as his development. But Chance Cisco is someone who I still don't think is anything more than a backup catcher from a defensive standpoint. He's still not a strong backstop in any way. And I'm not going to expect him to improve markedly in that area. But he swung the bat well. And you look at what he's been able to do. I mean, this is a guy who has a 456 on base percentage through Sunday. He draws walks. Yeah, he strikes out a good bit, but he's drawn a lot of walks. He's hit for power. And he has an OPS over 1,000 at this point. So he's been a nice story. And do I think he's going to continue quite at that rate? No, but he's looking like someone who's more and more looking like a major league hitter. And does that mean he'll settle into being a DH, or maybe he becomes a part-time player who plays against right-handed pitching and spells some other guys in the lineup? I mean, we'll have to see how that plays out over the next year or two. But it's been nice to see some younger guys who have gone through some adversity. I mean, Chance Cisco was a top 100 prospect in baseball at one point and clearly fell off over the last couple of years. But he swung the bat well, and he's performed this year, and he's taken advantage of some opportunities. And now, not knowing what's going to happen with Severino leaving the game Sunday with an injury, don't think it's something that's terribly serious, but it could be something that keeps him out for a little while. Cisco's going to get some more opportunities behind the plate even. So you want to see him take advantage. And again, you're trying to identify those guys who have a chance to stick around. And look, if it's Chance Cisco being a backup catcher, almost like a Mark Parent kind of role, a left-handed Mark Parent who was kind of a backup catcher by title.
How dare you bring up Mark Parent, one of my favorite all-time Orioles that I actually knew back in the day.
But clearly not a guy. not a guy who was known for being Pudge Rodriguez behind the plate, but hey, had some pop, and he was a second or third catcher on your roster, and maybe chance to go.
He's a hell of a minor league manager for a few years up in Reading, as I remember.
Yeah. So you're trying to figure out what these roles are going to be for any of these guys who can potentially stick around. So even over the last week, with clearly running into some issues against the Blue Jays, who, by the way, Blue Jays have certainly started to play. So, they lost a couple to end the weekend, but had played much better, coming into the Orioles series and then taking care of the Orioles the way they did. The Red Sox, splitting a series at home, considering they're 11 games below 500. Yeah, you'd like to win 3 out of 4 or sweep, but the Orioles are the team that your opponents are looking at and saying, we can get well against them. And unfortunately, that's what happened over the last week. But again, I keep coming back to some of the individual stories that have been fun to watch, and very much looking forward to seeing what Ryan Mountcastle does here over the next 6 weeks. And hey, for a guy who did not draw walks to any meaningful degree in the minor leagues, last year he had 24 walks and 553 plate appearances. He has 3 walks now in 3 games. So that's been good to see. So, hey, those are the little, and had a couple doubles on Sunday. So those are the things that I'm much more akin to get excited about than seeing what the final score is on a nightly basis. And that's just how I feel about where this organization is at this point. If you win, great, but I'd much rather see individuals who could matter long-term being involved in that winning. And, if you lose, so be it. I still want to see those younger guys that have a chance start to contribute. So that's where it's been nice to see some of these guys that have gone through some adversity, like Mullins and Cisco, really come on and perform well.
Mark Parent, man, you got me reading Mark Parent's wiki. And I'm way. By the way, he was the manager of the Reading Phillies. I think it's the last time I talked to him. It was like 10 years ago. I think Ray was producing the show and had him call in at some point or something like that. But either way, he was the bench coach for the Chicago White Sox for 4 years, 12, 13, 14, 15. Had I known that, I would have got you to get him on the cell phone, at least talk to me when he was there. But I love reading Wikipedia because it's hilarious. On October 25th, 2013, Parent was ejected from the Rangers-White Sox game during the pregame lineup exchange at home plate. The reason is still yet unknown.
Well, you remember the trivia question that Mark Parent's the answer to. Who was the 1996 Oriole who hit the home run to break the 61 Yankees record? It was Mark Parent, of all people, which is just hilarious and kind of speaks to how weird that team was. But yeah, Mark Parent hit the record-setting home run for the 96 Orioles that year, where they couldn't pitch a lick, but boy, they could hit the long ball, and they hit those long balls to the wild card.
I wonder if every guy like Mark Parent that went between the big leagues and the minor leagues for 12 years and then managed in the minor leagues and then coached in the big leagues and then managed more in the minor leagues. If you keep all the hats, just looking at the names of the teams that he's been associated with, it's great. The Lancaster Jethawks, the Chico Outlaws, the Lakewood Blue Claws, the Reading Phillies, the Mobile Bay Bears, the Arkansas Travelers. I just want a hat. The Estrellas Orientales. He was the MVP of the Dominican Winter League back in 87, 88. The Great Falls Voyagers. Imagine just having a hat from all of these teams, man.
Yeah, it's fun. They always said back in the day, plenty of stickers on the suitcase. So
if anybody sees Mark Parent, tell him I'm looking for him. Tell him to ring into me.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, you look at someone like Mark Parent. This team has a roster full of guys like that. And
if I can't get him to call in, I want Jack Voigt to call in. If not him, I want Cheeto Martinez.
Jack Voigt. There's some good. Cheeto Martinez, one of my favorite random players of the early 90s Orioles. Had a pretty good 1991 season, if I recall. I swung the bat well.
I singled off Peter Schmuck using the bat of Cheeto Martinez.
There you go.
True.
There
it's
you go.
True. He is Luke Jones. Luke at WNST.net, and, of course, monitoring all things Ravens, all things Orioles. You can read his work, read his blog. As we merge WNST.net and Baltimore Positive together, Luke will have a nice cherry spot out on the front page of the new website, hopefully to launch at some point next week as well. I guess on the baseball side of things, unwritten rules and weird stuff and Joe Kelly and shoes and who's throwing and who's fighting with the Astros and who's beating up Altuve and, all of that going on. I mean, on a night-by-night basis, between the Caps, losing, hockey, basketball, staying in line with whatever our government is doing on any given day, whether kids are going back to school. And I know you're glad I plucked you away from teaching fifth grade up there in Pennsylvania. But for baseball right now, in finding a heartbeat, right, finding people like you who love baseball to be up late at night watching the Padres because they're well-dressed, as an example.
I mean, the Padres, my goodness, the grand slams. And look, the unwritten rule thing, here's where I actually am encouraged. I feel when you saw the talk about it on Twitter, there were fewer and fewer opinions that were supporting the nonsensical unwritten rule talk than you would have seen 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I feel it was funny. I saw so many people that were outraged about the reaction to that, to the point where it was almost an echo chamber of people supporting Fernando Tatis Jr. and the Padres, which is good, by the way. You're up big in a game.
Play the game.
Pitch. Play, right. I mean, I'm not saying you do anything to be overtly disrespectful.
By the way, this is the thing that drives me. Let me go on a little bit of a rampage about this. Yeah. But, I'm watching Miguel Castro not hold batters on Sunday, right? Hold runners on, in a one-run ball game. And I'm thinking to myself, does anyone pay attention to the game when the game's going on? I mean, there's been a part of this with the Orioles, especially over the last week, okay, where it's so substandard, like the decision-making, you're a big league ball player. Hit the cutoff, man. Know how many outs there are. Know how many strikes there are. Know where you are on the field at all times. Know the circumstances. Know not to make the third out of third base. Just stupid stuff. You know what I mean? Stuff that my father taught me at Eastwood Little League when I was 8. Mark Karolkowski's dad, Butch, telling me, you be out there picking daisies. There's part of that. And then there's the part where you're like, oh, it's a 7-run ball game. Don't swing. Let's all get out of here. I don't know, dude. John Harbaugh didn't like those rules. I know that much.
But going back to the point I was making, though, I don't see that many people buying into that part of it anymore. So it's funny. I just saw so many people outraged about it on Twitter, and I kind of say the reaction I'm seeing actually makes me feel good about the future, because everyone's kind of in agreement about this. And, for every one person who said, that the game shouldn't be played that way, I feel like there's 100 people now saying, no, that's fine. Swing away. And I don't know. It's funny when I see arguments about that side of it. Then I also go into how many teams that are way behind now that are using a position player to pitch and things like that. So it's kind of a weird juxtaposition.
Once you do that, by the way, you should just lose. If Chris Davis is going to pitch in the 7th inning tonight, just stop the game and let everybody go home. You know what I mean? Like, literally. Yeah. We're in a plague. You know what I mean?
I mean, maybe there should – I was just going to say, maybe, we're doing 7-inning doubleheaders. Maybe we should have a COVID mercy rule. But I don't know. Like,
if I'm bringing a non-pitcher in to pitch Major League Baseball, I've quit. You know what I mean? The game is over at that point. That shouldn't stop Fernando Tatis from padding his stats.
Sure. And to be totally honest, I'm not outraged about teams doing that, but it is this weird juxtaposition of, play the game the right way, yet we're going to throw our catcher out there to finish the 9th inning because we don't want to burn our pitchers for tomorrow night. And look, there is a roster management side to that you have to be cognizant of if you're a manager trying to get your bullpen even through a 60-game season, let alone 162. But I don't know. I'm heartened by the fact that more and more people seem to be dismissive of the unwritten rule nonsense and flat out saying, you know what? Fernando Tatis Jr. is one of the great young stars in the game. This is the kind of kid we should be celebrating because, boy, he's talented and he's got some enthusiasm. And,
his jersey looks good.
And I would even say, as someone who I'm 36 years old, but I've always prided myself in being an old school kind of fan. I've really warmed up to bat flips and showing a little more emotion. And now I don't want to see someone doing cartwheels around the bases and making a mockery of the competition, but I'm okay with seeing some excitement when someone hits a home run. And, I don't think it's showing up the pitcher as much as it's just being really excited for your team. So those are the kind of things that I'm okay with. And I want to see some of that celebrated. And we've seen baseball, as much as they do a terrible job overall marketing, some of the, some of the subtle marketing that they've done to sell. Remember, they did that back in the postseason last year. I like seeing that. I like seeing Ken Griffey Jr., who at the time wore his hat backwards. I mean, that was considered something that was, I wouldn't say taboo, but definitely against the norm. And to have him kind of say, yeah, let the kids play, let the kids have fun. And, I want to see more of that. I love seeing what the Padres have done. And by the way, when I told you that Manny Machado is signing with the Padres, look out, because they have a lot of good young talent on that team. You're starting to see that come together.
Padres are making the playoffs. Stay up late. Let's stay up.
I mean, they're in the division with, they have the Dodgers to deal with in the NL West, but they are playing some darn good baseball, and they're hitting the ball. And hey, I mean, how can you not like a team that's hitting grand slams at the rate they are? I mean, that's been fun. So,
dude, if you and I go to Buffalo this weekend, will they let us in?
I think so, but I'm going to be in Owings Mills.
Just an idea, man. I mean, they're playing Major League Baseball in Buffalo this week,
I'll say that based on the way I haven't watched full games there, but seeing highlights, the ball flies out of there, and the dimensions are quite friendly. So
I've been to that ballpark. I was there the year it opened. Mike Rosigliano took me there. I was in love with a girl in 1989 from Geneseo. I think I've told you this. I went to Pilot Field then. And it was one of the eighth wonders of the world. You know what I mean? It was built before Camden Yards, so it was exciting place.
And it's funny. And look, I'm not making light of the fact that the Blue Jays can't play in Toronto, and we understand the origin of why, and so many of these elements being weird and uncertainty and all of that. There's something about this season that, because it's so weird, and some of the stuff that we've seen, there are parts of it that I've kind of had fun with. I didn't think I would like the extra inning rule, Nestor. I hated the idea. I've kind of enjoyed it, and I almost don't like the fact that
I think it's stupid in college football, by the way. But that's
but the fact that it's so weird. And look, I would not want to see it in the postseason. I still don't know if I would want to see it permanently. Maybe it'd be something you do if you're tied after 13 innings, because I don't know if anyone wants to watch a Wednesday night game go to 2 a.m. But there's something about it that it's kind of fun. And I do like – I like the idea that as much as baseball botched the restart, and clearly we're going to be talking about labor strife and work stoppage and so many different topics over the next couple of years as it pertains to that. I like some of these different look, I love seeing the DH in the National League. I've never been someone who wants to see pitchers hit. Pitchers have become even less competitive at the plate than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. It's a joke. So I like seeing the DH and not having a free batter for National League pitchers to pitch around. So I've liked, even the 7-inning doubleheaders. I don't think I'd want to keep it, but given the circumstances, I'm okay with it. I mean, I've said all along, my stance on this season has been it's a competitive exhibition. Everything this year is going to be an asterisk. We know that. And even the World Series champion, you're going to look at it in a different way than you look at any other champion. And people have said the same thing about Washington winning Super Bowls in the 80s and work stoppage years. They kind of talked about how that wasn't necessarily the same thing as a traditional season. But, at the same time, I've had fun with it. And maybe it's just that the Orioles' 6-game losing streak this week notwithstanding have been a little more competitive and fun than I figured they'd be. But I don't know, just this weird 60-game madness and, seeing some very unpredictable stories. It's been fun, and I'm all for it.
Where else can you see Tommy Malone toe the rubber twice this week? I'll tell you that.
There
Tampa this week, and then off to Buffalo, Salem Field. And I do remember going to Pilot Field in 1990 for a baseball game. with my then girlfriend from Geneseo, New York, and Mike Rosigliano up there in Buffalo. And all I remember about the game, I swear to God, and I had to Google the guy, Junior Noboa had like 3 hits and 5 RBIs in that game. So I had to Google up Junior Noboa to see what he's doing with his life. He is some sort of scout with the Arizona Diamondbacks. So I like Junior Noboa because he was short like me. Dominican. So that's all I remember. I mean, it's strange to remember these little things. I thought of Todd Froworth for some reason last week. It was something about Mike Messina and baseball. It jogs my memory. I don't know. I got a lot of baseball going on up in this brain of mine. Tampa, Toronto this week. The Orioles hovering right around 500. And Luke and I'll be watching on the television and getting ready for Owings Mills and getting ready for football season, but not preseason weird bad football, just regular season bad, weird baseball. Fair enough? That define it all?
Yeah, and fake crowd noise in both forums, so go figure.
Yeah, I kind of like being at the football stadium for a little while on Sunday, just hearing like some modern rap music and a little Guns N' Roses cranked up in the stadium. I put a very, very good picture of you up that your kids and grandkids will want to see. Hey, Grandpa Luke, where were you during the pandemic? Well, son, I was down at the football stadium. It was 104 that day. You can make it a little 5 degrees hotter than it was because it's pretty hot. But I figured that, that was a good picture for you. I snuck up on you there. I figured you'd appreciate that when you saw it on Facebook because I know you didn't know I took it.
I had no idea, and I did appreciate it. And yes, amidst these weird circumstances and empathizing with fans, not being able to be out there, it reminds me it's a pretty cool opportunity that I, doing what I get to do and keeping everyone informed what's happening with the Ravens, what's happening with the Orioles.
You know what's really crazy now is that like I get to pull stuff up now, and I can actually make it come into the middle of the screen if I want to. You know what I mean? Like if I want to, I think I can do it. Hold on here. I'm zooming. I'm learning how to do things. Look, I can put Luke on the screen now. There he is. There's Luke. How about that? Is that good?
I am.
There he is. See, the things we can do on the interwebs these days, it's a wonderful thing. He is Luke at WNST.net. I am Nestor. I'm back on the screen. We are WNST.net AM 1570. Calm, local, baseball, football, and Baltimore positive.